We all know that Deion Sanders is a smooth talker. He's a big talker. He's put a lot of confidence into his new look Colorado roster. But has he created too much pressure for his team and himself in year one? I'm going to talk about that and more on today's episode of Locked on Buffs.
You are Locked on Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? This is Locked on Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borwood. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about the pressure level that Coach Prime has kind of created or brought upon himself. We're going to be talking about the all Pac-12 transfers that Colorado has. Athlon put out a list, and as you can imagine, the Buffs had quite a few transfers that made the list. And I'm going to talk about how Colorado, Deion Sanders, Travis Hunter, whoever, how they could silence the doubters in 2023. It's not complicated, but it's not simple. And I'm going to talk about that on today's episode of Locked on Buffs, which you can find every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast or your team every single day. That's what I do. So without further ado, let's talk about the pressure. I think the pressure's high. And then this is just me thinking out loud. And then, of course, first thing I see when I look up Colorado is the pressure cooker rankings or pressure check rankings. From On Three's Jesse Simonton. Don't know how to say his last name. Doesn't matter unless I meet him. Simonton, I'll call him. He ranked all of the coaches in the Pac-12 based off pressure. I thought it was very interesting because there's a lot of coaches in the Pac-12 who, like Lincoln Riley, he's not going to get fired at USC. I don't think he'll ever get fired. Like as long as he keeps winning games and competing, I don't think he'll ever get fired. But he has pressure to take that next step. He led Oklahoma to the playoff multiple times, didn't win a single game, didn't even come close really. They had one. Actually, I take that back. They had one close call against Georgia the first time back when Tua threw the game-winning touchdown and replacing Jalen Hurts in the Natty. Oklahoma basically had that Georgia game, I don't want to say in the bag, but they were in very good position to win the game, and they did a few things that were questionable. You have guys like Kyle Whittingham, who is trying to three-peat as Pac-12 champions. I would say there's some pressure there. There's pressure. Chip Kelly, can he do it without DTR? Was that just a fluke, or was that a sign of things to come? But in this ranking, the thing that I found the most interesting, and obviously this is why I'm talking about it, and I think it's something that I agree with too. I wrote about the 5 people that are facing the most pressure in the Pac-12 as well, and Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, was there. But he had him as the highest pressure. Him and Justin Wilcox were tied for facing the most pressure in the Pac-12, which Justin Wilcox makes sense. You never want to talk about someone losing their job, but that's kind of part of the business these days. And that's something I've learned in covering college football and stuff and just sports in general. It's kind of the awkward part because for example, this past year was my first year covering Stanford, and it's the year that David Shaw, I don't know if he would have been fired, but he stepped down. I think that was a mutual decision between both parties. I think there was like an urging by the program to be like, we think this is a good time. Sorry about that, my microphone. But you could kind of tell when you could just tell when it's not working out. You could tell when there's maybe a little program fatigue, like the energy around the program doesn't feel the same. You could tell that the fans don't feel the same. The coach himself, I don't think David Shaw felt the same. And so I think that when people are on the hot seat, it's obvious. And Justin Wilcox, who had a good year a couple years ago, hasn't been able to recreate that success. I talked about him. I interviewed him for Athlon. He knows the pressure's on. He's well aware. And he said himself that if you're someone who doesn't want people talking about you, then you're in the wrong profession. So I like that perspective. But Coach Prime being tied for first for the most pressure in the Pac-12, I think it's right, but it's wrong. Is Coach Prime under a lot of pressure in year one? Absolutely. Is that pressure self-inflicted? Also, yes. I think had he and I don't blame him for flipping the roster. This is just, hear me out here. Had he kept the 1-11 roster, brought in, say, 20 transfers, I think people would have been like, okay, we'll see how good it gets. Obviously, the roster 1-11 last year, not that good. He's working with what he's got. I think the pressure would be lower, but he came in right away. He said, I'm bringing my own luggage. It's Louis. I need you guys to get out, which I totally agree with that decision. I think and this happens in every new coach in college football. The very first, this is like the built-in excuse for like a year and a half, maybe even 2 years, is they don't have their guys yet. I saw it at Texas with Steve Sarkisian. He came in with I believe, Casey Thompson and Josh Moore and guys like that, and he was like, and the whole narrative when Texas was bad his first year was he doesn't have his guys yet. Wait till he gets his recruits, and then it'll be different. That's the built-in excuse, and I mean, it's a good excuse. I mean, it's not wrong, but I think Coach Prime kind of took that excuse away from himself by bringing in guys that he picked via the portal. Nonetheless, he still picked them. And I think that by doing that, by picking those guys, he eliminates that built-in excuse from, not that he needs an excuse, but people aren't going to be level. They're not going to be level-headed when it comes to watching him. They're going to instantly criticize. As soon as Colorado loses a game, there's going to be nothing but criticism. And so I think that he did bring the pressure on himself a little bit. And I think the cool thing about him having well-off media surrounding him constantly, obviously it's a son, so why wouldn't he have his son with him? But I think the cool thing is the fact that we get those behind-the-scenes moments, but then when we see moments where he's telling his team we came in to dominate right away, I think he's kind of helped people create these expectations. And whether the expectations are fair, I don't think they are. Realistically, I don't think you should expect anything from a first-year coach. Not that first-year coaches can't succeed. We saw with Sonny Dykes at TCU. But if your expectations are that they're going to succeed right away, I think your expectations are a little unfair. I think your expectations should be that Colorado's going to be improved. I think that's fair. They're going to be improved, and anything beyond that, that's a plus. Take that as a plus. I think a lot of people are just too zeroed in on it has to be a boom or bust. And I feel like we're already categorizing Colorado as a boom or bust team, and they're not. We don't know what they're going to be. The Pac-12, they play the most difficult schedule in the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is at the strongest it's been, and we have no clue if any of these transfers are going to click. Or if they do, we know some of them are going to click, but we don't know how many. He brought in 51. And I told you guys that they need at least 30 of them to be above average to high level starters or players. Obviously, you can only have 22 starters, but they need at least 30 of them to be that good. And that's a lot of pressure. And obviously, I don't want to put pressure on this program. I don't think there should be pressure on them. I think the pressure is unfair. I think the pressure is unrealistic. I think if there was pressure, I think it should be that they're going to improve. That's what I would make if I had to make a statement that Colorado is going to do what in 2023, I'd be like, Colorado is going to greatly improve in 2023. But for people putting pressure on the program, it's like you're doing it unnecessarily. Like, just because Coach Prime is confident in his program, why wouldn't he be? He's not going to come in right away and be like, you know what, we struggled last year, so we're going to try our best. Obviously, he has to have confidence, but the national heads being like Colorado, they put a target on their back, in which I'm sure they kind of did. But I think there's going to be a target on their back regardless of the transfers or not, because it's Deion Sanders. It's Coach Prime. Everybody wants to beat him. But people acting like this isn't Alabama or this isn't Clemson right now, where it's like they struggled last year. They didn't win. So the pressure's on for them to return. Colorado's accomplished nothing. There is no pressure. The only expectations is that they're better. If you told me heading into year 2 that there's pressure for them to compete with another top 25 recruiting class under his belt, some more quality transfers, I could agree with that. But pressure in year 1, I feel like that's unfair. Did he put the pressure on himself to answer the episode title? Yes. But is that pressure fair? Is that level of pressure fair that other people are putting on him? No, not at all. But that's just how college football works at the end of the day. And Coach Prime, he doesn't shy away from it. And that's the cool thing. So we'll see how it goes. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount and bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 back in bonus bets, win or lose. So that's $200 you could spend betting everything from money line to over/under to who you think is going to hit the first home run, all in an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. Okay, so I talked about the pressure on Colorado. Is it fair? No. Did Coach Prime kind of bring it on himself? In a way, yes, but it's just him being confident in himself and in his program. And I think if you ask, like Matt Rule, for example, at Nebraska, if you ask him if he's confident, was he going to say no? Like, no coach is going to say no. I think that there's just an extra cachet to Coach Prime where people want to add more pressure than what there could be or should be. Let's dive into Athlon's all transfer team. As we all know, Colorado brought in 51 transfers or over 50 transfers. I think the number is 51. My good coworker of mine, Steve Lasson, put together the Pac-12 all transfer portal team for 2023. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of buffs, like I said. Quarterback, first one, Deion Sanders. He was picked over DJ Uyunglele at Clemson, Drew Pine at Arizona State, Jacob Conover from BYU, Sam Jackson at Cal. The Jacob Conover went to Arizona State as well. Sam Jackson at Cal from TCU. A lot of good options, but Shedeur stands out. He said that if Colorado is going to go bowling under Deion Sanders, it will have to lean heavily on offense while the defense finds its footing. With that in mind, Sanders is likely the most valuable to his team in 2023 compared to DJ because obviously Oregon State won 10 games with average quarterbacks, below average quarterbacks. And so I would consider DJ an above average quarterback. So pressure's not really on him. That he just has to not be terrible. And even then that might be a stretch compared to last season. Those quarterbacks for Oregon State were not great. Shedeur, I've talked about him before and I've talked about it again. I think this is like an interesting debate, and it's not to bring him or Travis down. I think Travis is the face of the program if I had to pick a player, but Shedeur is like the heart of the program. So if Shedeur's going, I feel like the rest of the team's going. If Shedeur struggles, the rest of the team's going to struggle. Obviously, that's not a hot take to say your quarterback, if he's not doing well, your team's not doing well. But we've seen teams with below average quarterbacks like Oregon State do well. But there's so many unknowns about the defense. If the offense could take the pressure off the defense, it's going to make life so much easier for everybody involved in Colorado. And I think the only person who's like the catalyst to do that is Shedeur Sanders. He could show off his arm strength, his accuracy. He could kind of move in the pocket when needed. And so a lot of potential there. And I think realistically, if Shedeur's going, this program's going. And that's what you guys want to see. That's what Colorado wants to see. Running backs. We got a running back. Alton McCaskill, Houston transfer, towards ACL last season, but year prior ran for nearly 1,000 yards, 16 touchdowns, caught 21 passes, was the American Freshman of the Year. Also, they kind of gave us the two-headed monster. They also brought up Kavosi Smoke from Kentucky. I think realistically, I think that could be the best 1-2 punch in the Pac-12. I don't know. I don't know why my microphone always likes to play these games. I was saying, I know Oregon State always has really good running backs. Oregon has some solid running backs. Cal, I don't think Cal kind of gets the recognition they deserve. But Jaden Ott is probably the best running back in the Pac-12. And then they went on and added Byron Cardwell from Oregon. But I think Colorado has a close second or maybe third backfield. And I think Alton McCaskill is the difference maker they needed. I think Kavosi Smoke has a lot of potential. I think he'll do great, but having two starting caliber running backs is going to be huge for Colorado. All purpose, Travis Hunter, Jackson State transfer, Colorado, wide receiver / corner. Everybody thinks the consensus on 3 ranked him as a top 30 player in the country. I think he's He's consistently made preseason all wide receiver, preseason all defensive back. Everybody is expecting Travis to be the star. That's why I said he's the face of the team. And he has a lot to prove in the sense that I think people want to see him live up to those expectations. And I think he will. He showed us during the spring game, very capable receiver. He'll have a chance to shut down some of the best receivers in the country. It'll be interesting. It will be interesting for sure. Sorry. Wide receivers. We got Jimmy Horn from Colorado, the USF transfer. Realistically, I think he has a chance to solidify himself as the best receiver on the team. I think Xavier Texas receiver, Xavier Weaver. I think Xavier Weaver has a chance to really shine again at Colorado, especially with better quarterback play. But so does Jimmy Horn, especially since he's been in the system. He was the first to earn his number. He was kind of a team leader. He's established himself as a team leader. In spring, he was standing out. So he has a lot to prove there. And I think Xavier Weaver is going to be really good. I really do think he is. I think Jimmy Horn just has that Swiss Army knife type of vibe to him. He's much better than a Swiss Army knife type of player, but think of like Deebo Samuel. I think that if Colorado used him like that, he'd be unstoppable. Tight ends, we didn't have one. Obviously, I think if Sadie Traore was on the team, so they'd get one, but none there. Jake Wiley, former Colorado Buff, made the offensive line. They got Tyler Brown and then Savion Washington, both at Colorado, both offensive linemen that made it. Especially Savion, he knows the system. He knows the Sean Lewis system. There's no reason that he shouldn't be a starter. He's got the size. He's got the knowledge of the system. So that should help. Tyler Brown, same thing, size, familiarity with Shadur. So the Colorado's offensive line is like the most important unit on the field because we don't know anything about them. We haven't heard many positives about them this offseason, so it'll be tough. Defensive line only got one. Derek McClendon, the second from Florida State, excuse me. Obviously, they're all from Colorado that I'm bringing up. He joins Jordan Birch, the South Carolina transfer at Oregon, Bear Alexander, the Georgia transfer from USC. I think Jordan Dominic was kind of snubbed, but he is in the honorable mention or others to watch for that position. Derek McClendon and Jordan Dominic are going to be quite the duo on the edge. I'm very excited to see what they can accomplish. Hopefully, for the sake of the Colorado defense, they're able to get to the quarterback because as I've talked to multiple Pac-12 coaches, the only way to slow down these quarterbacks is to bring them to the ground because you don't want them running around because then they'll just throw it downfield to someone who's been running around wide open. Linebackers, you got both of them. Levante Bentley, the Clemson transfer, and Demore Kennedy from Alabama. Very high expectations for both of them. I talked about Levante Bentley has a chance to be a leader, and I talked about Demore Kennedy has a chance to explode after being kind of a reserve, not really knowing what he was type of guy at Alabama. Defensive backs, we got, let's see. So since Travis Hunter was selected as all-purpose, he doesn't count as defensive back, but he should be on here. None from Colorado from the defensive backs, even though that's probably their strongest unit. But either way, there's a lot of people to look out for. Colorado's got a lot of talent from the transfer portal, and I think that they're going to have a lot of all Pac-12 guys if everything goes right. If Colorado has a few first-team all Pac-12 guys, a few second-team, that probably means they won some games or they're going bowling. That'd be my guess. But there's a lot to be excited about if you're a Buffs fan. Just keep tagging along with me. We got a lot of great things coming up. Like next Friday, I have Pac-12 analyst and former USC quarterback Max Brown coming on the show. He's going to talk about the difficulties of being a quarterback and the challenges that Shadur is likely facing. So that you won't want to miss that. But when we come back, I'm going to be talking about how to silence the doubters if you're Colorado. When we come back from the break. Welcome back. We're talking about how to silence the doubters. Now, this really applies to anybody at Colorado. There's going to be doubters. I've talked about it earlier in the episode. Coach Prime kind of brought the pressure, and now it's up to the players to live up to these expectations that I'm sure they have bigger expectations for themselves than we do for them. But there's still going to be public pressure. There's still going to be public expectations. And how to silence these doubters? One, the easiest way is to win. I think this isn't profound. This isn't innovative. winning games shuts people up. There's no secret there. I think if Colorado beats TCU, they beat Nebraska. They're competitive against USC and Oregon. People are going to be like, oh, this is a good team. We were sadly mistaken. The other way to silence the doubters is Colorado can't fall apart. They have to stay connected, be competitive, and most importantly, they have to improve. I think a lot of people who are unrealistic and are going to clown on Colorado for say they win 7 games, and people are going to be like, oh, they said they were going to win it all. Yeah, those are the people that we're not trying to silence, because those people are off in la la land. You don't know what to tell you about those people. Some people are just in their own world. But if you have a chance to win 7 games, and show improvement and show that the program's headed in the right direction, that's how you silence the doubters. Because I think people like that one anonymous coach, they think this is going to be a failed mission. They think everything about Coach Prime at Colorado is going to fail. And I think just showing improvement is the best way to silence the doubters. Obviously, winning is a great way to silence the doubters, but you have to show improvement. You have to show the strong culture build, and you have to show that this isn't just a publicity stunt, if you will. Obviously, I don't think that's what it is, but some people are taking it as that. So you have to show it's not that. And so a lot of pressures on. I think Coach Prime and all of his bunch are the people to do it. But when they show improvement, that's how you silence the doubters. And I think the doubters, there's going to be a lot of them. There's probably going to be more doubters than fans, but that's just how the way of the social media world works. So there's not really a way to ever please anybody, but there's a way to silence some doubters, and you just got to win, show some improvement, keep that culture strong. And I'm confident that Colorado can do that. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs today. I want to make sure you guys follow, like, subscribe, make sure you guys are following along so that way you get all these great episodes with great guests and other stuff coming up. So won't want to miss that. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great Thursday. Wish me luck. We got a doubleheader in softball.